Smear Jam. I'm the project manager at EDP Renewables, working on the Northern Water Solar Park. So I've been coming up here for about 2 years now, heading up our development efforts. So it's been great to meet a lot of you here in the community, and looking forward to meeting more. One thing I do want to flag before we start talking about this project is it was permitted through the local ordinance before the state siting was enacted by another company, Orion, in the past. We acquired this project from Orion in 2023, and we fully intend to keep permitting it locally as well, even before the state siting was enacted. So just want to flag that that was always the plan. And for the most part, we have followed all the requirements from the previous ordinance, and we'll talk about screening here today in the presentation. So Mr. Turris already gave a pretty good overview of this project, but just wanted to highlight again, it's a 110 megawatt level 3 alternating current solar energy system photovoltaic under the Cheboygan County zoning ordinance. It is a permitted use in ag and forestry management and lake and stream protection, which is all the land that is participating in the project. We have about 810 acres encompassed within the fence of panel area, again, over the larger 1,700 acre footprint. And this is spread over 32 land parcels, which is all privately owned land. There's no public land involved in this project. Landowners voluntarily chose to enter into lease agreements, and that is and one collection easement for this project. Again, the point of interconnection to the grid is where the energy collected from the arrays is stepped up to a substation and then injected onto the transmission line, which is already existing and running through the project area. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about this in the presentation because I know there's a lot of questions about where the power goes. Lastly, we've got construction plan for 2027, expected to take around 12 to 18 months, and we've got a goal of being operational by the end of 2028. So now I'll hand it over to our Executive Vice President, Tom Laturco, for an overview of the EV. Hi, so again, my name is Tom Laturco. I'm the Executive Vice President of EV Renewables. I'm responsible for our business east of the Mississippi and throughout Canada, which is kind of the half of that map and then the northern part of that map. I'll address looking forward just because there's a lot of stuff up on the screen, but if there are obviously any questions once that time comes, I can turn around. We are a company that develops, builds, owns, and operates wind energy, solar energy, and storage throughout North America. We're headquartered in Houston. I'm based in Indianapolis. As I said, we're an owner operator. So we build a project and then we stay with it for the 35-year life, and we have our own people operating the project. We own about 90 utility scale projects, including 26 solar parks. Actually, that number is 27. We just commissioned another one in Texas. And we have over 3,000 megawatts of solar in operation. So this is something that's very close to our hearts in terms of what we do. We've invested in communities to the tune of $18 billion in North America, and that includes Canada, Mexico, and the United States. And through those projects, we've invested in local governments just over $500 million. And actually, before we get there, I know that there's been a little bit of some conversation, especially on Facebook, about who EDP is. So EDP is Energies de Portugal. It's a Portuguese energy utility. We operate at the utility level coal, gas, renewables, hydro, nuclear, all of the above. We are an all of the above energy company. There's been a question about whether we are a Chinese company, and we are not a Chinese company. We are a publicly traded company on the Lisbon Euronext exchange. What I believe that where that's coming from is there is an investor that holds that's from China that owns a small minority stake. Like any publicly traded company, anybody can buy our shares. However, EDP Renewables is a separately publicly traded company that operates renewables, including EDP Renewables North America. But because of all of that, we are very, very clearly an American and a North American company. And the reason for that is any company that has headquarters such as we have in Lisbon has to run through what's called the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS. And we have a national security agreement, which indicates that all board members, all information, all of the operational information that we have stays within the North American entity and within EDP Renewables. And that is an agreement that has been in place for over 10 years with the federal government of the US. So nobody can, um, uh, let's say, appoint board members to our company without it actually being approved by the US government in the CFIUS process. So I just wanted to be really clear that we are very clearly a company that operates autonomously in North America, and we have a separate board specifically for that. So I just wanted to address that and to be very, very clear about that process. Okay. So I'll go in, a lot of questions I've also seen on Facebook and through conversations with folks up here. It's about the solar panel type. So specifically, uh, so we haven't finalized which solar panel, but what I can tell you is I'm partially responsible for assisting our procurement department in identifying which panels that we're going to use. And we have domesticated our supply chain over the last 3 to 4 years when they become available, which wasn't always the case. I've been with the company for 18 years. And so specifically, the panels that we're installing now are uh, based in, or they're manufactured in Toledo, Ohio, or in Georgia. So we expect actually, because you'll see it's a publicly available document, we've done an agreement with a company called First Solar for 1,800 megawatts. We've done an agreement with Q Cells, that's the company in Georgia, for hundreds and hundreds of megawatts. These are all domestic panels manufactured here and shipped to the project site. So I just wanted to be very, very clear about that matter. Specifically, our first project that we're building in Michigan is one called Eagle Creek. It's in Saginaw County, and that's using those Q cells panels that are made in Georgia. So certainly I can answer any questions if any of those questions come up, but it's actually been a really big triumph of the industry to domesticate the supply chain and make sure that we're supporting U.S. manufacturing jobs. And that also goes for the racking system, that goes for the pipes, that goes for the components. And actually, we believe that we'll be able to qualify for what's called a domestic content adder due to the fact that our domestic supply chain is so strong for this project. So talking a little bit about what is photovoltaic energy. So photovoltaic PV is predominantly made of silicon. Essentially what happens is you have the polysilicon crystals, sun hits the crystals and it knocks off an electron. If you knock off enough electrons, it goes through the collection system and creates a current. And that's how you get electricity. And then you have a number of those that are strung together, and you get enough to be a utility scale solar project. You can see, one thing also that I've actually explained here earlier, as people were asking me, is so okay. What else are the solar panels made of? One, glass and aluminum is 90% of the solar panel mass, and then inside you have the polysilicon. It's very, very important to mention that solar panels do not have liquid inside. That's a misconception. It's a question that my parents asked me when I was starting in this business, when we're starting to do solar. And they asked, well, is there any liquid inside? And anode, cathode, there's no liquid inside. And so there's nothing to leak if the panels are damaged in any way. And certainly I can answer some more questions about that. Um, then the next question is, are they toxic? And the answer is no. So I want to alert your attention to at the bottom. It's called the RECRA. It's an EPA guideline, RCRA, Resource Composition Recovery Act, I believe. And essentially, you have to be able to qualify any material that you're using in a commercial capacity per the RECRA guidelines to say that you are not hazardous. You do not have these materials over the RECRA limits. And for every panel that we install, that is absolutely the case. And the question is, well, how do we find that out? Well, the way that we do that is called toxic characteristic leaching procedure. to make sure that we are not toxic. And what that is you basically take a panel in a lab. We don't do it. We have a third-party lab that does it. They break up the panel, they grind it up into pieces, and then they look at the constituent parts. Then they put it under really, really strong hydrochloric acid, and then they figure out what comes out of that and test to see if there's anything in there. It is a really, really detailed procedure to ensure that you don't have these materials that you qualify as hazardous waste for reference. So it's something that we are very, very clear upon. But I know that there were some questions, especially at the open house that came up, about this topic. And it is very clear because we go through that process, it's DCLP, we can very confidently say that these are not hazardous. Okay. And then another question that we get quite a bit is what happens at the end of life? And we can talk about decommissioning, but before that, we are a company, and this is a public program called Close the Loop. It's a recycling program. So if we have panels at the end of the life that are coming off the site, say we're repowering it or we're decommissioning, we have a local or regional partner that takes the materials, and the goal is to recycle 80 to 90% of the components, so that we're not just landfilling them. Okay, it's very important to us that we would be a sustainable company if we did that. But actually, we have to do that right now. Okay, so this is not a program that we're saying, okay, 30, 35 years in the future, we will do it. We are doing it now. Why? The reason is that whenever you're building a project, you are transporting these panels over a long distance, and sometimes they come to the site and there's a defect, or sometimes there's a cracked uh, component, or sometimes there's something that you wouldn't put on your brand new solar park, and we have to send those off the site. We don't just send those to landfill. We've committed to send them to the closed loop recycling program, so we're doing it now. And that means that we will have a steady stream of these agreements with local providers to ensure that closed loop is strong and that we are continuing to do what we say we're going to do, which is again a publicly available document about a closed loop recycling program. Okay. So a little bit about our operations and maintenance. I started the conversation here about EV Renewables North America being an owner and operator, and that's key because somebody who, one of my colleagues will be operating this project if it is ultimately approved, and they will be here for the full time. This is not, we own it, we build it, and then we send it to somebody else to operate. And we say, okay, please just send us the cash flow. That's not how we do it. Our core business is to own, operate, and be present in communities with generational investments for 35 years. I've specifically been with the company, as I mentioned before, just over 18 years. And all of the projects actually that I have built, we are still operating. So how do we do that? During the previous presentation, there was an operations maintenance facility that was shown. That's a small building, and that's where the people that will, the high voltage technicians or the solar technicians, they are there during business hours, and they operate the site. So they're looking at condition monitoring. They're looking at whether we have to do routine maintenance or preventive maintenance or anything that has to respond to if there's some major issue on the site. In addition, those people have access to what's called the SCADA system, which is site control and data acquisition. You can see how the plant is operating at any time, and if there's anything they need to respond to. And somebody's on call at all times who's local to the project. In addition to all of that, we have a remote operations control center called affectionately referred to as the ROC in Houston, and there are people there 24/7 monitoring that SCADA system to ensure that there is, that everything is operating correctly. And if they need to alert somebody local, then obviously they can do that with the person who's on call. They also do this, they monitor weather patterns and to ensure that if there's any type of extreme weather, they can address it in a preventive manner. Specifically, if there's going to be a windstorm, well, what do? You put the panels and you put them flat. And that makes sure that you don't have as much of that moment coming in panels. If we expect that there's hail, well, those panels will go and they'll go near vertical so that you don't have as much space or area for the panels to impact at a particular angle. And so these are the types of things that we do day in and day out to ensure that our plants are operating uh, as well as we possibly can. And we shoot for over 98% uptime in an entire fleet, which is 12,000 megawatts in with that. Yeah, so I'm going to take it back over for this one, which talks a little more about where the power goes, how does this actually work, what do the high voltage facilities look like. So Mr. Turris touched on this earlier, but the power generated from all the solar arrays is collected through medium voltage underground cabling, which then is fed into a substation owned and operated by EDP, where it's stepped up to a higher voltage compatible with the grid. From there, we've got that short transmission line, also referred to as the generator lead line, where the electrons from the project are actually being transferred over to the utility who owns the transmission line, as well as their own substation, where they're capable of putting the electrons onto that line. Once the power enters that transmission line, it goes to where there's a demand. So if there's a demand in the project area, the electrons are first going to go there. And if the supply exceeds the demands here, then it'll continue moving along the grid to the closest areas of demand. I think the bigger overarching message is that this is strengthening northern Michigan's grid with another source of power and helping diversify the grid. We need all of the above, coal, nuclear, gas, solar, wind. It's all part of the grid, and it's helping support a lot of the rising demand that we're seeing. Yeah, and this is another topic that's, always talked about what's going to happen at the end of the project life, what happens when operations end or, something were to happen to the company. So I want to highlight the 4 layers of protection that we have for decommissioning the project. Firstly, that's going to be through the leases with participating landowners, which require us to remove all the project facilities once operations cease. Next, the Cheboygan County zoning ordinance has specific requirements for decommissioning of the above ground facilities of the project, as well as to a depth of 36 inches below the ground. Accommodating those requirements in the ordinance is a financial surety, which covers the cost of decommissioning those facilities. If for some reason EDP were to not perform our obligations, something happens to the company again, and this estimate is subject to a third-party engineer's plan, and it's also reviewed every 5 years to account for inflation or any changes in decommissioning methods. All of this will be spelled out in a decommissioning agreement between EDPR and Cheboygan County, and it will memorialize our obligations. So we've provided a draft of this decommissioning agreement to the county attorney, so it is subject to her review and red lines, and we'll work with the county to execute that agreement. Yeah, I just want to talk a little bit about what is meant by the financial surety. That is not something that we provide on our own balance sheet. That is coming from a third-party bank, and it is in the favor of the county. So that's something that we need to provide, but it's provided by a separate independent financial entity, and it covers the decommissioning obligations. Okay, another one that was touched on earlier is, road maintenance and restoration after construction ends and once this project is operational. So we've provided a letter of intent with the Cheboygan County Road Commission, so both parties have signed that, and that indicates our intent to pursue what's called a road use agreement. And we've been having ongoing conversations with the Road Commission over the past year, working to figure out what all we want to include in that to ensure, that the roads are protected throughout construction and that they are restored. Similarly to the decommissioning agreement, there will be a financial surety with the Road Commission to ensure those obligations are met. And if they're not, then that can be used towards repairs. And then the last thing, as noted by Mr. Turris as well, once the project is indeed operational, there's minimal traffic, and that's going to be limited to a handful of operations team members and the occasional maintenance or replacement of components. EDP takes environmental stewardship very seriously. We want to be good partners with the environment. And so for this reason, we've completed
a wide series of environmental studies already, with future studies lined up. So some of the ones already completed are bat habitat assessment, a wetland delineations, a critical issues analysis of any other wildlife in the area, wildlife field survey, and an ongoing cultural resources study. Additionally, we do a lot of voluntary consulting with state departments and federally. So, we've got the Michigan Department of Natural Resources, who actually provided some feedback that they're appreciative of us leaving a lot of forested areas in the site area and not clearing those. We've also got the Michigan Department of Environment, Great Lakes and Energy, who is the jurisdiction in Michigan overseeing all wetlands. U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, Michigan Department of Agricultural and Rural Development. So there's a lot of this ongoing consultation prior to starting construction, and then again once we're operational. The design that we've shown here avoids the forested areas in the project area. So this allows for a lot of natural wildlife corridors through riparian areas to connect over to those woodlots, and allows for a lot of natural movement, deer migration, things like that to make sure we're not impeding on a lot of the habitat. The layout that we presented, and I think this is important to note too with the graphics we're showing, it's not one big fenced area. It's rather a cluster of panels in certain areas that is fenced in, again, allowing for a lot of movement between those areas. The last environmental point I want to touch on is that by producing this quantity of power through solar as opposed to traditional forms of generation, whether that's coal or nuclear, which require a lot of water for their cooling processes during operations, there's a pretty significant saving in water and carbon emissions. Once operational, there's really little dependence on natural resources for any maintenance of the project. Okay, screening. So Mr. Turris already also mentioned this, but I'll highlight it again. We are proposing a staggered double row of evergreens that will be between 4 to 6 feet tall at the time of planting. We're really focusing on this screening as a tool for viewshed mitigation around adjacent homeowner properties to the project. So we have actually been reaching out to a lot of these neighbors, offering one-on-one conversations to address questions about the project, but also to garner feedback on where they would like to see that screening, whether it's closer to their property line or maybe it's closer out to the fence. So this is ongoing, and we're going to continue this outreach to develop our final landscaping plan. The other thing here is that we are planting a ground cover beneath the solar panels and within the fenced-in area. So this will be composed of grasses, forbs, pollinators, which are compliant with actually a scorecard created by Michigan State University for solar development, which we've also provided in the Planning Commission packet. There's a lot of benefits to having this sort of crop cover beneath the panels. It's going to increase animal and insect activity, again through the pollinators. It's going to improve water retention and reduce a lot of the runoff and erosion. And lastly, it'll replenish a lot of the nutrients lost over the years through tilling and agricultural activity, and give time for the land to rest. Another point I want to talk about is agrivoltaics that's becoming increasingly popular. So what this means is kind of mixing agricultural activity with photovoltaics. So some of examples of this, which you might have seen, is sheep grazing within the panel areas, or the use of apiaries, which you can put around the perimeter and actually use for beekeeping, honey production. So here's an example of that proposed vegetative screening plan I discussed. It shows that double row at the time of planting around the perimeter of one area of the solar panels. This is taken from Trudeau Road and North Black River Road. And then the next image below shows, the growth at 10 years expected for that double row. So the initial couple of years will be for the trees to, get their roots in, and then after that, we expect to see pretty significant growth and little maintenance required. Yeah. So again, going back to the neighbor outreach that we've been doing to get feedback on the landscaping plan, the setback, the designs. We also do what's called voluntary neighbor agreements. So these are offered to adjacent homeowners around the project area, and it's a way we want to extend the financial benefits of the projects to those who aren't hosting infrastructure. This is something that EDP does for all of their projects. It also, offers time for one-on-one conversations, address questions people have, and concerns, and again, feedback. And a big part of our neighbor outreach has been through a hiring of a local resident of Cheboygan, Emily Lord. So she is serving as the community relations coordinator in the area, and she's able to meet with neighbors, provide feedback from what she's hearing, and answer any questions in real time. Okay, so we did do a property value impact analysis at the request of the planning commission. I'm going to call the consultant who prepared that report since he couldn't be here with us tonight, Nick Kirkman from Kirkman Appraisals, and he's going to give a summary of his findings. Yeah, hey Nick, I'm gonna try and put you up to the mic as best I can. Okay. All right, can you hear me? Everyone hear it at least? Okay. All right, go for it. Great. What are you going to say? I'm related with Cheboygan appraisals. I'm a state certified general appraiser at since and they really offer estimating doing like this for proposed developments, both for developers and as opposed to developers for these particular users. The research that we've done within the top study was to look at whether or not a proposed development would challenge a on the terrain property value. The methodology utilized in that impact study is what is recommended by the Appraisal Institute. The first method used to determine whether an impact would occur from the proposed use is through a matched pair or paired sales analysis. This is a methodology supported by the Appraisal Institute and outlined in detail in the Appraisal Institute software, real estate images, which is written by Dr. Randall. This is done by comparing a home that is sold adjacent to a solar facility with five similar nearby homes that were not adjacent to the solar facility in order to measure for any difference. Additionally, this is one of the two methods that we utilize within our report. The second method is the stability scale analysis. This methodology is based on the a property having sold prior to the solar facility being developed, and then selling again after the development in order to measure for issues over that time period. So if you think of an existing home that's sold next to a vacant piece of land, then that vacant piece of land is developed into the solar facility, and then that same home that's sold before the solar facility was in place is developed into it. Using a market derived it's right because it's sold at the time for what it would be expected to sell for 4 days over less or more. And this would indicate an impact or lack thereof. The information in the impact study is informative and site plan with both proposed dedicated buffer and setbacks from the zoning lines. And the conclusion of the impact study is that a proposed development would not have any impact on the zoning of nearby property values based on Michigan specific data, as well as fully data from two other regional states, Ohio and Indiana, which show a very similar breakdown of additions to homes, as well as similar sized projects, and a similar area in terms of the nearby household income and the nearby home values. And with that, I turn it out to Samir. All right, thank you, Nick. Okay, I want to touch on what's called the Eagle Renewable Ready Communities Award that's offered for permitting projects locally, specifically renewable energy projects. So because we are doing that here and not going through the state, both Grant Township and Cheboygan County are eligible to apply for this grant. And it'll be $2,500 per megawatt, which equates to $275,000 to the township and $275,000 to Cheboygan County. These are discretionary funds, so the township and county respectively get to decide what they would like to use those for. I've met with the representatives from the township and county who will be applying for this grant and giving them the information they need for that application. Once awarded, this payment would come in 2 installments, so half at the start of construction and half once we reach commercial operations. Additionally, through this CREO that was adopted by the county earlier this year, Northern Water Solar Park would provide a $220,000 lump sum payment at the start of operations. So Cheboygan County can use these funds for critical local services such as police, fire, public safety, or other infrastructure projects within the county. Now, on top of those grants and the host community agreement, we expect this project to generate over $24 million in local tax revenue over the expected 35-year lifetime. I've got a slide on the next page which breaks down the different taxing entities which will receive revenue from this project. So you can see it's based on the property tax cards in Grand Township. None of these totals include any of the grant money that was mentioned. So critical, services are also on there. Township, county road department, schools. So this is the breakdown of the preliminary estimate. That wraps up our presentation from the EDP side. So I'll hand it back over to the planning commission.
Thank you.
Okay, the planning commissioners have any questions for the plan? John?
I have a couple. First of all, back to your investment, your $2.53 million that you expect to see in tax revenues, property tax revenues. I'm assuming that those are based on personal property taxes. So what's the value of your project?
Yeah, so right now that land is being taxed as agricultural land. Well, when we do site our facilities on there, it flips it to being taxed as industrial personal property tax.
So it uncaps the property taxes, and you guys are responsible for the property taxes, not the farmers?
Yeah, correct. We're responsible for anything that is in addition to what the farmer would have paid before. So it's legit.
And so, with that, and when you're doing 2.05 million a year for the next 25 years, does that include any depreciation or any depreciating those assets?
Yep, there's a depreciation period over 10 years.
Okay, thanks for that. And then, another question that I have is, all of the agreements that are in the package, the lease agreements, are under Orion and not ECP. I did a little research and it looks like Orion is your parent company, is that correct? What's the relationship and why aren't there agreements with EDP?
Oh, they are agreements with EDP. The company that is the counterparty to those agreements is Orion Cheboygan. It's the specific project company and we bought the entire project company. And so we are the owner of those leases.
If we have an assignment which we can provide that basically indicates that the leases.
Okay, yeah, that's what I'm.
Happy to provide that.
Communications. And then, let's see, there's one more, here. Oh, the trees. I would like to see two different types of trees in your stagger. Would that be something you guys could do to? I white pines and white spruces.
Yep.
Just something so that they're not, if they become prone to disease, wipe out the whole thing.
Sure. Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
We can get that agreement?
Yeah. Yep. That could be a condition for me first.
Isn't that really?
Anybody else? Any other commissioners have questions or comments?
Quick one, when do you plant these trees? When are your plans to do it immediately? Do you do it in 1 year? Do you do it in 6 months?
Yeah, so typically we will plant them in the next appropriate consistent ice construction. So this allows for any modifications during construction. We don't want to plant trees and then go in and cut them down. So that is typically what we'll see either in the spring or fall to follow construction.
So the completion of the planting will
Yeah.
be how long after operation?
It would likely take a couple of months to.
Anyone else? Sure.
I guess I'm just a little bit confused about the individual, it's not gonna, the fence is not gonna go around the whole property. Okay, so how big of units are going to be fenced in? Are they, you know, I don't know, it's 810 acres, so are they in 20 acre or 30 acre, what are they?
Yeah, I don't think we have the site plan on here.
That's probably.
Yeah. Yeah, the overall is fine.
I just don't understand.
Yeah. So
I'm trying to visualize what it would look like, that's all.
Right.
And then with the 20 acres or whatever it is, would that have a fence around it and the
Correct.
trees around it? And then there'd be an open spot and then there'd be more or a different one?
Yeah,
Is
so,
that how it's going to look?
yep, typically we'll set back from, any of the wetlands or the woodlots that I
Right.
mentioned. And so it'll be pockets of varying sizes.
Okay.
Throughout that. And so we'll stay out of any utility easements from the setbacks or the homes, and it'll be like a cluster that's fenced in individually.
Okay, cluster individual, okay, it's giving me a better vision.
Yeah, and we'll get it up here too, so that you can
Okay,
see what we're talking about.
thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, yeah. So there you can see throughout the site, anywhere in red has been indicated as a regulated wetland or beagle. There's the woodlots that are depicted there in green. And the fencing, which is kind of hard to see on this, but it follows around each of the blue array areas.
So this is the fence?
The fence goes around that entire blue area. And when you- right, and then when you see a gap, that's when the next one is. Yep, yep.
How many acres on both sides?
We could get that, but I can't tell based off this
Could you
image.
provide them?
So, yeah, sure.
Jerry, in the number 10? No, she's on the phone. Yeah. Stop.
No, we're good. That's all we feel we did. Yeah, we are, or have to get another comment.
How do we get a copy of the property value that your gentleman spoke on the phone? We couldn't really understand it. I think, Mike, you may have it. I'd like to see that, what that impact is.
Was Kevin, I did this after forward that to each of those meetings. It's 500 pages. I didn't not, but still have it in your email. Should be. I need to get one section. I just want to be sure I get clarity. The additional taxes should this project were paid with a total project. Right, are over and above the taxes that are still being paid by the ag, mostly ag landowners. So they're still paying tax on property that we arranged to lease with them. And so these are over and above to the benefit of the county and the township. Nothing's being given up or lost. Correct. This is incremental tax income for the various organizations, right? Yes, I'm not sure everyone heard the question, but the question was whether the taxes that we pay are incremental.
So the question was whether the taxes that we pay as the part of the project are incremental to those that the landowners originally paid, and the answer is yes. There's nothing that is then taken away.
Have nothing else?
People that wish to speak to the comments.
Can't hear you.
People who want to speak, in regards to this proposal or whatever, if you would, line up in the center aisle here or whatever, so there won't be any interruption between, speakers. We'd like to make this as short as possible. Remember, there's a 3-minute time limit for anybody commenting. If you have additional comments, you want to submit those in writing, please do so. Mr. Chairman, I have a list of those, which now I do not have this amount of this.
Excuse me, does anyone have, yeah, the sheet, names of those? All right. Hey. Yeah, no, I think that was just a sign in. So there's one that's indicated those who wish to speak and one that's indicated basic signs. Harold?
Let it go, let it speak.
And I would start, this gentleman here, he wants to. Check.
They're not gonna line up.
Public comment now open.
My name's Troy Hop, 341 Twin Lakes Road. I'm also here representing my parents, they're here as well.
Close to the mic, please, can't hear you.
Since the planning commission really doesn't have much say in this, it's gonna go to the state if you guys deny something. Most of my comments are gonna be directed towards EDPs. First of all, we're a state licensed public use airport, right within a half mile of your solar rate. I would direct you guys to contact Michigan Department of Aeronautics. And we would like some correspondence that's reflected back to us regarding your impact and what changes have to be made to our airspace use. We also would like that to include the avionics, the communication systems that are part of the aviation part. Finally, I'd like to say, you guys are the stewards of the land. This is not Saginaw County, this is not Indiana, this is not Ohio. This is the vacation place. People come here to get away from this. I would ask you guys to do your due diligence. Would you live in this? I mean, honestly, this is not where there's 7 houses within a huge array like this. Not to mention, half of the people that just come up here for vacation now have to transit through this. Please do your due diligence. Be stewards of our land. Since the township, the county, they can't do anything. You guys are the only ones that can. Do that for it.
The people who are on the list will be commenting tonight, please keep your comments to yourself. And next up here, yes.
Desiree Dowling, 5518 North Black River Road. I just would echo what he had to say. We purchased our home, which is surrounded. We're at the very top of that map, surrounded on all sides, except for one, because we own that side. We purchased our property for the peace and quiet. We purchased the property so my children can play outside without traffic and people and noise and all the things that this project's going to bring. We have 27 windows in our house. 22 of them will face solar panels. Right now, you sit out on the back deck and you watch the sunrise. You sit out on the front deck and you watch the sunset. And now we're going to have tall berms and trees, and you're not going to have that pure nature that he just spoke about, which is the whole reason we purchased the land to begin with. I guess my last comment would really just be around, we just had a massive ice storm that completely terrorized our community. It already put our ecosystem in an uproar. We lost so many trees. Who's to say we're not going to have Ice Storm 2.0, and all those, you can put the panels all you want. You won't avoid what we just went through. And the whole thing would be deteriorated in a matter of 2 days, like most of our lives were last April. All of those solar panels would be ruined. It would be in pure destruction, and for what? I just want to say that our family is opposed to this. Thank you. My name is Francine Hamby, and it was Gainer. I'm at 8311 Twin Lakes Road. And my sister, Chris, and Keith Kukuski, they live on Cronin Road, and they'll be across from it too. My other sister is on the other road, which is Owens, and their family is on that road. We all live on a generational farm. Been on that farm since the 1800s.
She has what they call compound migraines, so she's having a slight problem. I'm her husband, Ken. Some of the things that I want to address and ask the gentleman over here, the engineers and that, when you talk about it could be up to 60 decibels, is there a way to inform everybody here what's that equivalent to? Is that like a car going by you, or is it a jet plane taking off at an airport? I would be interested in that. You got 24 million that you're talking over 35 years. If I did my math right, that's 650,000 a year. You got to think about that. One of the other problems I see with the company here that they're maybe not taking into consideration is there's they call him the Orange Man president. He just implied that he's going to tax solar people. Like 20%, they want to build something. I don't, hopefully you're aware of it. So that's going to impact your bottom line. All right, and you're talking of sending power up to 30,000 people. And everybody here wonders, like what the young man said, it's going to help people in this area and the excess will go someplace else. I think you need to define that more. Okay, and what we're going to do is get out of your way.
Sorry. I appreciate the people that have to deal with this monstrosity. My name is Allison Studer. I don't live in the community. I live at 6836 Afton Road in Afton, Michigan. And what I like to say, the 3-person panel in Michigan for Whitmore's 233 is government overreach. And Gaylord and other people that you mentioned are in a lawsuit. And I think the board should really consider putting this on hold until those lawsuits are going to be court. It's 24, 18 big solar firms with bankrupt. How will we deal with these solar panels if this happens and the company goes bankrupt in the near future? The bonds are still going to go so good for so long, and we won't put money into them if the thing's bankrupt. So in 30 years, they go bankrupt in 10. There's 20 years of money that's not going into this. Where's the rest of the money going to come from to get these done? It's going to be us. It's the same thing as what's happening with these solar panels and the grant money that they are getting. 90% of them through our tax money.
Amen.
It's our money. We should decide whether or not it should be done. Also, in May of 2024, the U.S. energy officials are reassessing the risk posed by Chinese-made devices after unexplained communication equipment was found inside. EPE fails to mention that China is their major shareholder. They might be on the board, they're the shareholder, they have a sway. And, the panels that they say come from Vietnam, Thailand, and Cambodia, they're not made there. They are assembled there by Chinese ports. That should be a big consideration. Question is, why is China mining more coal instead of using this technology? Government incentives have dried up. EPD cannot guarantee any grants or tax relief because the tax incentives for these are going away, as mentioned previous testimonies in the binders that you had. There's only one person in that whole thing of all their solar parks that have that testimonial, and it's about the money. And by the way, PFAS and PEVs are coated on these solar panels to make the glass more durable. We all know about grayling and PFAS, Pelston and PFAS, and all these chemicals. One panel may be fine. Thousands of these panels are going to be in our landfills or recycle centers or whatever in 25 to 35 years. I don't want my grandkids and my children to have to deal with this waste and toxic shit.
Yes, my name is Lila Hollis, and I am also not a community member, but I am the Clean Energy Specialist at Groundwork Center for Resilient Communities located in Traverse City. I moved to Traverse City 2 years ago after having deep family ties to the area, and I still remember being completely in awe of the Great Lakes, the open farmland, and the strong sense of community we have here. This place quickly became home, and it's that love for Northern Michigan that brings me here today. I'm here to express my support for the Northern Water Solar Project and offer some insight based on my work and research into the proposal. At Groundwork, a part of my role is to review clean energy projects across Northwest Michigan. I've read many of the public comments related to this project, and I 100% understand that people have valid concerns. I live across the street from a solar project in Traverse City myself. I believe this project would be beneficial to the Cheboygan community. As we've heard tonight, it would generate enough clean electricity to power over 30,000 Michigan homes and contribute to about $20 million to local government revenues over the next 35 years. That includes roughly $400,000 for nearby school districts in the first year alone and an additional $2,000 per megawatt to Cheboygan County annually through a community agreement. From a land stewardship perspective, the company plans to plant the native vegetation needed, support pollinators, and reduce stormwater runoff. I worked for a conservancy, I was an AmeriCorps member there, and I understand the importance of farmland protection. The project must also meet all the permitting and environmental regulations through construction and operation. As we saw with the Gaylord ice storm, as many of you have mentioned, our more rural communities need better energy independence to reduce these catastrophic impacts of storm and other weather events. As someone who believes in thoughtful, clean energy development, especially in rural communities, I see this project as an opportunity to support local landowners, strengthen tax base, and move toward a more resilient, independent energy future for Sheboygan. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Hello, my name is Alan Chamberlain. I live at 11084 North Richfield in Inverness Township. On this map here, they're saying that solar panels are only going to be in Grant Township, and I know on some of my neighbors, they've already proposed putting in solar panels in Inverness Township. And if you go out to the Highway 23 toward Ottaway, them being friendly to animals, they've literally clear cut hundreds of acres. That is not being friendly to wildlife at all. And proposing 7 to 8 foot fences is not friendly to wildlife whatsoever. And in Cheboygan County, I know on our county commissioners, they do not want new businesses coming in, but they want this here. And I know the windmills will probably follow, which are more expensive to put in and electricity they generate, and when those fail, they do not deteriorate, that they do nothing but pollute our groundwater, our ground. And I am totally against it, and I know they're planning on a setup in Luminous Township. Thank you. Sir. They told me if I thought that it could be. If I could experience this. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Joe Long, I'm 58 of Twin Lakes Road, right next to this abortion. This, what I'm gonna show here is an abbreviated version of what I presented to the council here. And they have a copy of the full presentation. Is this one? Everything that they're telling you on all these presentations is incorrect or misleading. I was involved in over $2 billion projects myself for the past 30 years. My wife has had even more experience than that. So we're used to presentations like this. What they're telling you, they're hitting all the big numbers to make it sound like it's really important and really good for us, but it's really not. They say they're going to save 139 million gallons of water. So what? They're not going to save anything. That was if they were going to build another plant, like a coal plant. The only water that's going to be used is now going to be runoff on these toxic plants. They're going to go into the ground. That's the only issue with the water at this point. They're saying they're going to have multiple jobs. They're going to pull their construction people from an already approved list, just like I would have at my own company. There might be a handful of local guys to supplement, but that's going to be it. They're talking about multiple people that are going to have jobs. Local, there may be two. Okay? Maybe two, maybe three. He's already told us it's all going to be online and from different locations. The big lie is about the electrical grid. The big misconception is that the grid is one big happy grid and all just pulled from one grid. If you ask them the question, which I have, I said, where's it going? They said it goes to the path of least resistance. That's a true statement. What they're not telling you is that you see that white section, that's where PIEG is. That's where we get our power in Grand Township. That transmission line cuts right through there and it's not attached. We will get zero power out of that transmission line. I already asked the gentleman up here to confirm that at PIEG and he didn't. So I confirmed it with PIEG again. The chief engineer at PIEG says that transmission line is not attached to anybody local. So for them to tell you that we're going to have power locally in this project is a lie. Okay. Again, this is from their presentation. They're showing you all the big numbers. Oh, you're going to get all this money over 35 years. You're going to get millions of dollars. And that looks really good until you break it out per year. Now you tell me what can a fire department do with $30,000? We're going to pay for half of the person. Is that what they're going to get? How about EMS? They're going to get 15,000. It pays for a quarter of a person.
we break this down and look at this, they're giving us nothing. They're taking advantage of our property when this type of a project should be done downstate over all the brownfields and all the old factories. Okay, I know you're gonna tell them to shut up.
Good job, John.
Everybody get your hand.
My name is Deb Buter. I live at 9454 Twin Lakes Road. But I'm really here to represent my parents, 83 and 84-year-olds who live on Hanson Road, 8234, completely surrounded by this project. Every ounce of my being is opposed to this project. My parents chose to purchase property in the middle of a dairy farm on purpose to live out their last years. They don't want to look at your evergreens that are not going to grow before they die. They don't want to look at the fence. My dad wants to sit in his barn and shoot the deer that he shoots each year. It's not going to be in your backyard. It's going to be in our backyard. And we don't like it. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sherry Long, and I live in Grant Township, 5804 Twin Lakes Road. Mike, I know you mentioned that the Cheboygan County Development Corporation is very much in support of the project. Is that correct?
That's my understanding.
Yes, so that would be Sharon Lang, correct? Her daughter, Emily Lord, works for EDP. So does anybody feel like that is a conflict of interest or an ethical issue? I do. I wonder how she got that job. Very interesting. So I would like to say that 810 acres is 1,613 football fields. Turning farmland into an unusable toxic waste dump. If you are not outraged by this, you are not paying attention. And EDP is calling this Northern Water Solar Park. This is an insult to our community where parks are our pride and joy. Parks are large public green areas used for recreation. That's how we in Michigan use parks, not for solar panels. Nowhere in the EDP literature do I see a large green public place that's going to be used for recreation. I'm not going to be running around through the solar fields having a picnic. So my biggest concern, in addition to other concerns that mentioned, and also that was mentioned by the lady that spoke earlier, is that I forwarded this to the commission, that there is a national security issue. There was a news report from May of 2025 across all national news publications discussing the discovery of rogue communication devices, undocumented cellular radios that were found in Chinese manufactured power inverters. EDP uses this supply chain. So this is being investigated at the federal level. And during U.S. inspection, they noticed that these are connecting to the solar panels and our electric grids. So these rogue components could be circumvented remotely and cause catastrophic consequences. So I really feel like this needs to be looked at strongly. We do not have a supply chain here in North America. We need to do the right thing for this community. Do not be swayed by the meet and greets, cash payouts for residents, whatever else they're promising. I called Samir directly to request an outreach to all of Grant Township residents regarding the open house and this meeting, and I was refused. So in terms of this significant outreach, that is very misleading. I really appreciate your time today, and please, let's think about this seriously. Thank you.
My name is James Bangle. I live at 5748 Owens Road. I own the 70 acres on Page Road and Owens Road on the corner there. I have Owens Creek running through my property. Fills up my pond, goes into all the way down to, the Black River, connects into, Twin Lakes runoff, Overfill, whatever. And you can't tell me that these things and all the traffic and all the digging and everything isn't gonna disturb everything. I don't wanna look at them and run off into the water, which goes into the Black River. Okay? I don't wanna see, the wildlife. I have abundant wildlife on my property. It's pristine property. I have eagles, otters, beavers, everything on my property. Okay, you can't tell me the deer are outnumbered. You can't tell me by putting up all the solar panels in them fields where the eagles hunt, and deer run, the fences up, and who wants to look at that crap anymore? Okay, it's a bunch of baloney. That's pristine. I call it God's country. That's why I retired up here. I've been from here my whole life. Owned a place on Twin Lakes. And I retired after 42 years work on the railroad. And this is what I come up to. And as far as these people are concerned, I don't, none of them are from me. Nobody's from me. I don't know if the county needs the money or whatever, but nobody notified me about anything. I found out at somebody told me about the last meeting at the township hall over there in Grant Township where I'm on. Okay, and I got an excuse. I got to say this. I do not participate in the internet. I don't care for the internet, so that might be one of the problems. But I have a regular antenna TV outside, wildlife out the window. I don't want to be bothered and all the truck traffic. I probably see 5 cars every day come down Owens Road or Page Road. That's it. You're gonna have all this truck traffic, and the only ways to get in is over on Page Road, off of Black River Road, and over on Twin Lakes Road at the party store by the Dirty Duck. Okay, the only other way in is coming around all the way around Black Lake. So all these people, including me, that live in this area, have to look at this every day when they come here, when they got pristine property to look at right now. And another thing, the last thing I want to say is, I don't know about your figures about people who paid and didn't. But can I just finish? This Tropical Bay Farms probably owns over 50% of his property. 100%. Whatever. And then he's got say over everything because he owns all this property? Sure. Thank you.
My name is Leonard Page.
Well, look for my.
My name is Leonard Page. I live at 9482 Page Road, the northern edge of the proposed project. I've lived here for 25 years, but I've been here my whole life. I'm afraid most of the audience doesn't understand what the planning commission is doing.
Closer to the mic.
The planning commission has to determine if the permit application is consistent with the county ordinance. The answer to that is yes or no. It is not a decision of whether or not to prefer a pristine pasture or a burned solar panel field. That is not their choice. They have to apply the law to the permit application. That application, either go to the planning commission and read it, by the way, it's 140 pages, look at them all, or you can go online and get it. It is clear to me that EDP meets all of the conditions for this ordinance. I don't know how the planning commission is going to vote, but again, it is not a choice between preferring to look at a pasture or preferring a burned area. I don't have enough money to buy all the pasture on Page Road. So I can't take that option. Thank you.
Don Compton, 6840 Strawflower Lane. And I just wanted to say that I am definitely opposed to this. I have a hard time believing that our property values will not be affected by these solar panels. And we are in a tourist area, and this will drastically change that. So will our property value, will our taxable value go down because of this now? What's gonna be happening to our property and our land up here? I mean, I find that really hard to believe that that's not gonna be affected at all. I also would like to know what's the long-term health issues from this. I mean, it's gonna be running off into Black River, which goes out to the straits. I mean, so it's not just our county, our township that's affected. It's everyone that's next to this, our lakes. You know, the wildlife, and who's gonna be held accountable when these solar panels go belly up and there's an ice storm? Who's gonna fix it? Who's gonna be mowing if they don't mow? I mean, I've traveled through Michigan and I have seen all these solar panel farms and they look terrible. I don't know how they can get any sun. And with the chemical trails that they're spraying it and they're trying to dim our sun. So what's the benefit of that? How can we have solar panels when there's dimming the sun? Just makes no sense. I know. Hello, commissioners, public. My name is Emily Lord. I live on 12383 Abraham Road. That's in Benton Township, for those of you who aren't familiar. I want to take my 3 minutes to let the community and the public know and make it abundantly clear that I am not employed by EDP Renewables. I am subcontracted and invoice my hours that I do for them through a very extensive legal contract. Again, I am not an employee. I have lived in this community for almost 10 years. I'm born and raised in Northern Michigan from Gaylord. I've enjoyed this area for my entire 30 plus years. So I'm very much a member of this community and have been my entire life. Thank you. St. Dick Curtis, 344 South Huron, Cheboygan, mile from here. I'd just like to say that what the man who saw this chart wasn't able to comment on, you can see that the most biggest ownership in the EDP qualified shareholders is China Three Georges Corporation. And China Three Georges Corporation is fully owned by China Three Gorges International Limited, which is 77.7% owned by China Three Georges International Corporation, which holds 70% of the shares of capital of China Three Gorges International Corporation, of which the People's Republic of China holds 100% of share capital. I think you should think about this. In addition, it is, as somebody mentioned outside, it's a defense issue. Two previous administrations have, federal administrations have said that any company with links to the People's Liberation Army should not do business in the United States. And so here we are. Not good. Why? Close it. Why? Why?
Ralph Heidecker, and I live on 1860 Winterfred. Just wanted to voice my opposition. I moved up here, I retired up here, and this is God's country, and that's not my expectation. That's not why I moved here. But one thing I wanted to point out that hasn't been mentioned is the gentleman here from EDP. You guys say you've been up here for 2 years, right? So what do you see in these fields every spring? Fields are full of them. You see every spring up here. Sandhill cranes. and they're protected. So I didn't see anything about that, as far as your habitat studies or anything like that, so. They're here for a couple months every year, and those fields are full. So that's all I have to say.
My name is Jeanette Matier. I live on Twin Lakes on Crawford Lane. And when we first built up here in the 70s, we put two solar cells on our dock to run AV lights so that we could stay off the grid and keep our actually costs low for a while. At any rate, in the 90s we built your house. But the whole time I've been up here and I'm retired, I've been very involved in the environment and ecology and respecting the land that we live in. But I also realize that I support solar energy because to me it is the cleanest energy that we're going to find. And it doesn't have the noise that wind has. It doesn't have guys digging coal and getting black lung disease. And yet what they do, the coal they dig, is what powers the energy that we use every day. But it doesn't happen in our backyard. So it's somebody else's problem. If you go to some place like Houston or go in Texas where there are a lot of refineries, the air is polluted. It's awful. But again, those people are providing the energy that we use every day. So to me, if we're going to have to provide more power, and when I spoke to the chairperson of Presqu'île, she said that we do not have, Presqu'île cannot generate the kind of power that we are beginning to demand because of all the electricity and all the devices we have. So let's think about it. To me, this is the least invasive. Now, I agree, I don't face those solar panels. I live on the lake, and I'm sorry that I can't quite feel the pain that you feel. But I still think that we're going to have to come up with some solutions, and maybe we better look at what solution we can take part in contributing to. And I'm old, so I probably will not be around to see these when they're actually built. But it looks like with all the white hairs in here, there could be two others. For those of you who are younger, I think you will not find that this is the disaster that you think it's going to be, because I've seen these all over the country and all over the world, and people are living with them quite contented. So it's not the way it used to be, but life isn't the way it was when I was growing up either, and I'm pretty upset about it.
My name is Jim Carter. I live at 1201 West Devereaux Lake Road, just to the southwest of this kind of project. A couple of things I'd like to mention is that one, that the photovoltaic panels that they're planning on using are low efficiency. They have very poor output on the cloudy or shaded conditions, which I think we have a lot of that here with cloud cover, rain, snow, etc. They say that during inclement weather, the panels will be tilted upright. Okay, they're tilted upright, there's no power output. During the night, there's no power output. They say they're going to produce 110 megawatts of power. That's going to be impossible to reach, simply from the fact that these are not that efficient. The other thing is that what benefit does this county get from this solar panel field? None. We're not going to receive any from the slide that we saw earlier by one of the other presenters. We're not going to receive any of this power. It's all going downstate or elsewhere. The other thing is that I know this panel can't approve or disapprove or stop this project, but you can suggest that they change the tax rate that they're going to be charged for the land. Because right now they said they were going to be charged the same rate as the original landowners. That's the ag rate. This is now a commercial property, so the land use has changed. So their tax rate should go up accordingly. So that's basically what I have to say. Thank you.
My name is John Runyon, and I live at 7164 Artesian Trail. This farm is buttoned right up next to our ditches and the Black River. And all that runoff runs right through our ditches every spring and every fall. That water just comes right through our property. Now, how are you going to stop that? They're lying. They're not doing no grading. They said they weren't gonna do minimum grading, so all that water is coming right through our ditches. My well is 30 feet from that. They said they contacted us. That's a bald-faced lie. They never been in touch with us. That's all I got to say. So I got to the list. Talk this evening. Yes, I did. State your name. My name is Bob Goodnow. And I got my letter because I own the property on the corner of Twin Lakes and Black River Road, so it's right across from the store and the restaurant, the bar. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. It feels good to be part of local politics and participate in a community issue. I don't have to speak about all the emotion that's filling this room tonight. I don't have to speak about the politics that's been explained. Your role, Leonard Page stated it. You're here, you got a job to do, you're doing it. But the legislation and all the pending litigation that else creates, a dynamic that, we're still all gonna have to wait upon to see where all of this goes. But the politics too, we know that your EDP people have done your job, you're lobbying, you're in Washington and everything else. We're aware of that. The room is filled with all the stories that are going on. The communications, Samara, it's nice to see you again. About one day. I just think you folks are obviously in a unique spot. And I think, and in my opinion, everybody's here, they've got personal issues, they've got NIMBY issues. My bottom line is this. I would urge the commission and everybody involved to take the word of Charlie Munger when he said, you want to know what's going on? Follow the money. Follow the money. And to that effect, I think it would be very interesting if EDP were to say, you know what? There's enough issues about what's going on with depreciation, what's going on with expenses, what is the P&L on this, where's the tax dollars, what's really going on, and then the reserve fund in case, it gets depopulated or decommissioned and everything else, where's all the dollars? That's what everyone's talking about and wondering about. I think it would be a neat idea that if EDP were to step up and say, here's $45,000, and county and township pick an analyst and we'll answer all their questions, get an independent analyst so that people aren't wondering where everything is going. You may say, hey, that's an idea this guy spewed out, and that's all it is, an idea I'm spewing out as I listen to everybody. But the bigger thing is to answer questions so that people feel that they know. Do you really know? No, we won't know for 10, 20, 35 years. But I think that might be an idea that's worth considering. Charlie Munger is a smart man. There's a lot of questions around. So maybe that's something that can be done. All in all, we know that life is about our families and our business. And I think this is an important decision for everybody to take some more time and think about. And I'm sorry, sir, that I'm over by 7 or 8 seconds. I apologize for that. Thank you.
Good evening, my name is Stephen DuBois, born and raised in Cheboygan County. Currently live in Cheboygan County. I spent pretty much my entire adult life in the energy sector as a contractor. They recently started tiptoeing into agriculture and the rest of the stuff that make the world go round. Besides the huge energy obstacle that we're up against, we clearly need to generate 100% clean energy so that our children and grandchildren and friends and family can enjoy what we have today for many centuries to come. Unfortunately, it's a huge task, which EEP is trying to tackle. And is greatly appreciated. But I sit back and I think of some of my ancestors and some of the guidance I had as a child. One of them said, buy land, because they're sure not making any more of it. I kind of said, yeah, that makes sense. If you want to be prosperous, own the land, because the Lord's not making any of it, or we don't, none of us see it coming anyways. There might be future life on Mars or wherever out there, like, you know, speculation, but, so to make this short, I would just like to to ask the commissioners to ask themselves how valuable they think land really is, and how valuable they think agricultural farm land is. And after they ask themselves, or clear that in their mind, how valuable they think it is, if each and every one of you, including EDP, you can find somebody that you think in any industry in the world that that you feel has common sense, ask them, is Grant Township agricultural farmland the place for a solar farm? And please, if somebody finds that individual that can indicate that has common sense, they can explain to them that this is the spot for solar panel. There's not a better place in the country for this solar park, then so be it. Put it right there where your plans indicate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
My name's John McCarroll. We own property at 9990 North Straits Highway. I'm also here on behalf of my in-laws and the rest of the family that lives immediately adjacent to this project. Over on Ross Road, Chamberlain Road, that whole area. I've spent the last few days rifling through that list of documents that are in there. Was doing my due diligence of, okay, I'm going to come in with this list of all these discrepancies in the numbers and the datas and all of that. Well, I quit somewhere around 125 items, and I wasn't through the whole package. All right, now I'm a financial guy by heart. I've been coming up here for 25 years. We bought a business in town. We are investing in this community. We own storage units. I've got a lot of square footage of roof. Perfect place that I would expect to see solar panels. I don't come up here, drive through Main Street, looking at our storage facility and saying, oh, man, what a eyesore. It's a storage facility. It's in the properly zoned area. All right. On the flip side, I don't go up to Black Mountain and want to drive through an industrial area. And I even heard the comment earlier about the tax rate is based on an industrial tax rate. So everything in addition to the ag zoned tax, they're going to be picking up. And that's where all of this fancy chart numbers are. What do you mean by industrial tax rate? Who is setting this tax rate as industrial? This is not an industrial area. Put it in an industrial area. Build an Amazon warehouse and make a deal with Amazon to line their entire roof with solar panels. There's a lot of acreage there. All right. We could put up parking spots for all boats, trailers, campers, RVs. And we can put up canopies that are solar panel roof canopies. Line that whole property with them. It's in a spot where I would expect to see something like that. Not out by Black Mountain, the north end of Black Lake. Not out where people are moving to see that country. Not where I'm showing my kids all the deer running through the neighborhood. All right. If I want to show them solar panels, I'm going to go in town. I'm going to go to an industrial park and show them the warehouse. I'm going to take them to the trash hill and I'm going to show them what, hey, this is where your trash goes. I'm going to take them to the proper area to see that stuff. Not Black Mountain. Not Black Lake. I feel for my in-laws. I feel for all the residents around there that their home values are going to tank. And you can see all the data that you want, comparables. What you don't see is the drive for people to want to buy those properties after this solar panel system is in. Alright? So when somebody's looking at homes in the area, they're not gonna say, oh, immediately adjacent to lake and solar panels. So that home is now not desirable because of this.
I'm Sandy Longmiller, 2518 North Blackmore Road. And I'll make it short and sweet. There's enough security, safety concerns out of this community that I challenge you, our county litigation person, to look for some legal avenue to hold up this project, to stall it, to do whatever we gotta do until all these major safety concerns are addressed. Thank you.
Well, one more. One more.
Hello, I'm Andy Beetham. I live in Huron Township. I got a bunch to say, so I'll try to make it quick. I own property that there's some solar panels on. And people say they work downstate, they come up here and retire to God's country. I've struggled for 25 years paying on that property. My dad's old tractor did more pollution than those solar panels are gonna do. And those tractors make more noise. My house, they're looking at doing a solar panel in Mineral Township. I won't be looking at it. It doesn't bother me. I live next to I-75. I hear noise daily. You get used to it. You never see it. The wildlife is out in those fields because the farm's there. I've never seen no one stop to offer my dad to farm. Help him farm. There used to be 40 dairy farms in Cheboygan County. There's none anymore. No one, everyone wants to look at the land, but no one ever wants to help pay the taxes. These people are offered to pay us some. So we did hay for 25 years. We've been solar panels for 30 years. Then we're gonna have a little money. So guess what? We can go back into farming and use some more money. So we'll provide good field for people to see. Because they never put no money in the jar as we're driving by. That's, I think, and and they talk about pollution. Some of the dairy farmers, I don't want to mention no names, on Black River. They say you fly over, you can see red big brown in the river. These solar panels not gonna put no brown in the river. Rick Trumbull, there was some farm fields there, he took the brush out because they're overgrown. The farmers are dying, these fields are going wild. The other thing is I got subdivided. So what do you want? Solar panels for 30 years, or do you want a subdivision for the next 100 years? I just want to pay my taxes. I'm tired of struggling. I might get a new tractor. Will I sell the property or whether I lease it? I'm not sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Are we sure there's nobody here that wants to make an additional comment that wasn't on the list? I don't see any hands, so therefore
One last comment. It's just a question of, do you want lights on in your house or do you want food on your table? Simple question.
good question. Depends on the time of day, I suppose. Well, this issue is now closed. The planning commission will be dealing with this issue on the 16th of this month, 2 weeks from today.
So, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, this meeting tonight, this public hearing tonight represents just that. So this meeting tonight represents the public hearing. The next scheduled meeting to hear the proposed conditions of approval and findings of fact is scheduled for July 16th, same time at the Cheboygan Opera House. Now, that would not be considered a public hearing. This meeting tonight would be the end of the public hearing.
I believe, however, that it is at the chair's discretion to take comments, but those comments would not be considered part of the record. Is that correct, Mrs. Kaufman?
So, sorry. I'm sorry you have to get in. I don't know how wide it is, but I just need job description. Okay, so the public hearing is required, was done tonight, that's closed. At every public meeting, there is time for public comment, so additional public comment can be presented 2 weeks from now. Will be in the minutes of the meeting, but not necessarily part of the record in this matter. And what that means is whatever decision is made, if it's challenged, what the court will look at is the record in this matter, which would be the minutes and all the application materials. So 2 weeks from now, whether or not the planning commission makes a decision that night, they will be they will begin their deliberations. Is that right, Mr. Turris? Don't shake your head.
That is correct. In the meantime, staff will be working with you on the draft recommendations and draft conditions of approval, and particularly the draft findings of fact for discussion on July 16th. That again is not going to be a public hearing per se, so there's no statutory requirement for us to newly advertise that date. So those of you who are interested, remember, it will be posted on the county's homepage. Those of you who have internet access. But the next scheduled date is July 16th, 2 weeks from this evening, same time, 7 p.m. However, at the Cheboygan Opera House in the city. Not here, Cheboygan Opera House. And I should mention, I don't have my watch, but we have to be out of here. Everyone's gonna vacate the building by 10:30. Any comments at this point from the planning commission? And your staff report? It's not at this time, Mr. Chairman. In that case, motion to adjourn is lost. Planning commission comment?
So planning commission comments, one is, I sat here tonight, I counted, EDP Solar has 9 people sitting here. Every one of them has a notepad. And every one of them's been taking notes. And I probably couldn't tell you how many times I watched them change the page and take more notes because their page was full. These people are committed to this project. And you can tell by where they're at. Can we say yes? Can we say no? Really, no, we can't. It's based on what we find and does it fit within the parameters. But I just want to let everybody know, I've been watching these guys up here. You couldn't ask for a better team member to be involved in this project of the solar companies that are out there. If we're gonna have this solar park in Cheboygan County, these guys are committed to doing the best job they can, and you can tell by talking to them, you can tell by working with them, and you can tell by 9 people sitting here tonight taking notes on everyone's comments as they came to the podium and spoke. If you said that you haven't been reached out to, 3 of these guys wrote it down. They're gonna reach out to you. And so, and we have landowners. I'm not gonna point them out for fear that they're gonna get beat over the parking lot, but we have landowners sitting here in the audience tonight because they care about what's going on. They don't have to be here. They could be sitting down in Florida on the beach. They're here because they care and they want to hear your guys' comments and they want to know what's going on. My questions are, from the local jobs,
to the 250 jobs and employees. We have a housing issue in Cheboygan County. We have a severe housing issue in Cheboygan County. We need to make a plan to house 250 people for the 2 years that it's gonna take to get this project up and running. I really don't wanna see the housing that we have at the Kinross Air Force, the old Kinross Air Force Base, the housing people. We have, if you guys could take into account and put it in your notes, that this solar park, I transverse that road 4 or 5 times a day. I drive by Bill Beetham's place out there, I drive by Trombley's place out there 4 or 5 times a day. If you guys could put it in your notes, maybe make it a park setting. It's a solar park. Let's make it a park setting where people can actually go and enjoy the nature that's out there. It's a beautiful place. Make it so we can enjoy it, not just solar. And so anyway, I want to let everybody know that these guys are fully invested. They're taking notes on what I'm saying right now. They were taking notes on what you were saying. Can we stop this? Call your legislators. I'm very disappointed that there was no legislators here in the room tonight. If you guys got an issue with it, if people have an issue with something like this, get a hold of your legislators. As a planning commission, we can only do what we can do. And if it fits within the guidelines, it's gonna happen. And I say that as just raw facts. But, get a hold, get involved. But I wanna let you guys know, these guys are fully involved, your landowners are fully involved. I look forward to seeing Beetham driving a new tractor. I don't think I've ever seen that.
Any other commissioners' comments? I guess I don't, you have a motion to adjourn? We have a motion and a support. All those in favor say aye. All opposed? It's motion carried. If any adjourned, I call the chair, which will happen at 7 o'clock. With an agenda that does not include this item.